Raya and the Last Dragon, the latest production from Walt Disney Animation Studios, has, in the short time since it was released, become an important film in the Disney catalog, and it's not hard to see why. Between the fantastic action sequences, beautiful set pieces, and unique story that pivots away from the classic heroes versus villains tropes, Raya and the Last Dragon really stands out. And it never hurts to have one more Disney princess who's a total badass. But the production of this film was a game changer and occurred entirely within the COVID-19 pandemic. Not to mention it was notable for Raya being the first Southeast Asian Disney heroine. So today on ScreenRant Docs, we're going to take a look at how Raya and the Last Dragon made history. First, we need to remember that at the time Raya and the Last Dragon was released, we were all living through a pandemic that prevented people from being in the same space. And this included filmmakers. While some productions went ahead with certain precautions, these were typically live-action films, and steps could be taken to ensure that actors and crew could perform safely. However, while live-action films can be done outdoors and in larger sound stages that enable people to keep their distance, the same isn't necessarily true for animation studios. Typically, an editing room looks something like this. They're much more closed-off spaces, and sometimes people even share desk space. So the solution couldn't simply be to have people wear masks. Instead, Walt Disney Animation Studios, in an unprecedented move, decided the entire film would be done from home. According to Den of Geek, co-director Paul Briggs said of the decision, "I still remember the day where everybody is like, we're going home, we're going to start building this thing from home." And the animators were kind of walking out with their computers. And while an animator's job, while still difficult, could be done remotely via a strong computer and the internet, the same can't be said for the talent. An actor isn't usually going to have the equipment and resources to record dialogue with high sound quality from the comfort of their home. In one story, Daniel Day Kim noted that one of his very first sessions from home, that after recording and performing for an hour, he realized he never hit record. But technology wasn't the only obstacle the production faced. Taking the production process remote went against the working philosophy that Disney Studios was known for. Creatives who work at Disney are all able to share ideas all over the studio campus. This was, in Disney's view, essential for bringing out the best in their employees. But because of the danger of working in person, Raya and the Last Dragon was going to be made without any of that benefit. Fawn Vera Sunthorn, the head of story, said that for their department, it was a crucial part of their work that they could see each other every day. You could drop by their office or approach the director, and in one night, all of that had disappeared. And that certainly wasn't the last challenge that they faced. According to Michael Tallarico in an interview with The Know, Disney's tech departments had to design pipelines that could send huge amounts of data across the United States. But they also required high speed so that the production could still be completed on schedule. When the pandemic began, the tools to do this didn't exist. But thankfully, they found a method that worked. And it's already begun to change the way future Disney productions are made. And as we can see, the production of Raya and the Last Dragon was eventually successful, and proved that where there is a will, there is a way. And thankfully, much of the research work for this film had been done long before the pandemic was upon us, and that research was critical for the way the world of Kumandra was shaped. Because they were representing Southeast Asia in their film, the team took research trips to Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore, and combined elements of each culture and spread them among all 5 nations found in the film. Co-writer Ki Win commented on how these nations were represented, and stated that, "The easy thing we could have done was, this land in Kumandra was Thailand, this one's Vietnam, this one's Malaysia." But then it gets into a really ugly place of going, oh well, this country is bad and this one's good and our hero's from here. So rather than portray any one actual country as the villain, they instead allowed every country to influence the film's nation in small ways. Adele Lim, Win's co-writer, stated that, to Disney's credit, they really went deeper to find the underlying inspirations and core and threads that ran through so many of the communities. When you truly look at what makes our culture amazing and sings, whether it's our arts or our food, it is because of all of these different elements really coming together and creating something transcendent. All of these things, Ki and I, who grew up in Southeast Asian households, know. And to ensure the accuracy of that research, the studio formed the Southeast Asia Story Trust, a group of consultants who advised on the accuracy of elements of the film, such as music, architecture, and martial arts, and whose intention is to ensure that the film is an accurate representation of the nations portrayed. And that was important to both writers. Adele stated that, When there's a project like Raya and the Last Dragon, it has a lot of attention put on it, and the people who have not been represented for such a long time have so much of their hopes and dreams pinned on it. Ideally, we're going to be in a world where we're going to have lots of projects inspired by lots of different aspects of our cultures, and so that one project does not really have to handle that burden. That said, other Southeast Asian voices had a more critical view of the film. For instance, despite the extensive Southeast Asian cast, no Filipino actor was among the main cast. The original casting of Raya, Cassie Steele, was Filipino-Canadian, but she was recast by Kelly Marie Tran for what producer Osnat Schurer said were key changes to Raya's character, although what these changes were isn't specified. Carolina Doe of the Song Collective, a group whose mission is to amplify voices from the Vietnamese diaspora, said of the film, "It was definitely a mixture of excitement and then concern and disappointment." Carolina felt that Disney casting already recognizable celebrities was an unnecessary step for the film, claiming that it doesn't need stars, it has the power to make stars. And while the film attempted to spread Southeast Asian cultures across all the nations in the film, with the intention of not demonizing or glorifying any one country, that may have had the unintended result of treating the region as one large culture and diminishing their individual traits. The filmmakers, however, had a slightly more optimistic viewpoint. According to Time magazine, Ki Win asked his kids who their favorite Asian superhero was, and they could not name one. So for him, it was important to provide a movie that could affect their self-esteem in a positive way, that they as Vietnamese people had the agency to be the heroes of their own stories. And for Vietnamese people, this is an important distinction, as one of their most frequent mainstream portrayals on screen has been in the form of the Vietnam War. It is worth noting that according to Adele, the film was made with many Southeast Asian artists, including on the story team, the visual arts department, and in animation. And hopefully, this was a step forward on the roadmap to Southeast Asian representation. To quote Goldhouse's Bing Chen, a nonprofit that was part of the Story Trust, "I love firsts for our community because we need firsts to get to next." And it is also worth considering that, according to Disney themselves, there were many diverse voices on the team for this film, including an all-female technical leadership team. Osnat Schurer is quoted as saying that, "The more people of different genders, backgrounds, and ethnicities are in the room, the more of ourselves we'll see on the screen," which is incredibly exciting. There is so much we can learn from each other, which in turn serves to deepen our empathy for one another, and our ability to all work together, embracing our unique contributions to make a better world. What could be a more timely message? As far as the film itself goes, Raya is a fantastic, compelling heroine, portrayed by actress Kelly Marie Tran of Star Wars The Last Jedi fame. Raya from the very beginning of her journey is a strong, skilled, and capable warrior managing to go toe-to-toe with her teacher and father, Chief Benja, an idealistic peace seeker played by Daniel Day Kim. The story doesn't center around Raya's need to prove herself in a male-dominated world, or does she need to become a stronger warrior than she already is. Raya's journey is much more personal. Raya, like the people of her world, must learn to take the greatest leap of faith and trust others. This is an especially difficult task for Raya, as her first attempt at living up to this ideal leads to the destruction of her home and the loss of her father. It's never easy to trust, and when the biggest leap of faith you take has such catastrophic results, it becomes that much harder to do it again. And the theme of learning to trust is present throughout the entirety of the film, and the small steps Raya takes throughout as she gathers companions from all the rival nations slowly build to her eventual final step, where she trusts the person who committed the greatest betrayal of her trust at the beginning of the film. Speaking to Thai PBS World, Don Hall said that, "Carlos and I felt that honing in on the trust required to achieve unity would lay a firm groundwork on which to base every decision in our lead character's journey." And that theme is seen in the world around Raya. The true villain of this story isn't a rival nation or a villain who can be categorized as evil. The villain is humanity's inability to put its faith in each other. While the Nation of Fang are presented as Raya's primary antagonists, their motivation is the simple desire to sustain their own peace. Now, granted, there are the evil spirit beings known as the Droon who turn people to stone, and they are an evil spirit-like entity born from human discord. However, this is again contrasted with the theme of trust. Were the people of Kumandra willing to try trusting each other, the Droon would no longer hold their power over humanity. It is also important to note that people aren't presented as the problem, but rather the victims. They suffer from their own ignorance and pain. They suffer in a world that has fractured them, and when faced with the greatest challenge to mending their world, they fail. Now, Thankfully, and spoiler alert, they do eventually achieve this goal, and the world does achieve a sustainable peace. But what is interesting is the importance this story has to the actors involved. Kelly Marie Tran, commenting on the recent violence against Asian Americans, said, "Recognizing all of the horrific attacks that seem to continuously keep happening, and then to be able to share this movie at this moment in time, when it feels like our community is really hurting, feels really special. To have something we can hopefully all celebrate and remind ourselves that even though the world is teaching us to be afraid, that we can be proud of who we are." There is no way to say conclusively whether Raya is an ideal representation of the Southeast Asian cultures it adapts, and only time will really be able to allow us to see if this was a first step in a greater climb. But what can be said definitively is that Raya and the Last Dragon is a landmark film in many, many ways, and hopefully, a film audiences can continue to learn from. And it helps that it's a wonderfully entertaining film as well, so please, go watch. Personally, I really enjoyed it. Anyway, have a good one.